Hi, I'm Blake Rayhans.
And I'm Stacie Mallon.
And you are listening to the Optimized AF podcast.
We know life is hard. We're here to make it simple.
All right. Well, hey, welcome everybody to the Optimized AF podcast. You've probably already been listening for about 3 minutes to our antics, but I am Blake Rayhans. I am here with my co-host Stacie Mallon, and we are happy and welcoming our guest today, Mr. Tim McGeehan. They are all lies. Quick intro, because I think it's relevant to maybe what we're going to get into today. So Tim has such an incredible background, and I'm going to take a little moment to kind of geek out here.
Is this where I say that's a lie too?
It's a lie too.
Generous,
okay.
Sorry,
former military, you were an executive vice president with Best Buy with that company for 20 years. You went and took over the CEO role for a luxury furniture brand out of London. You started your own consulting and coaching firm. You co-founded, grew, and sold a fitness beverage brand.
Yeah, I'd never been in that business before. Holy Hannah, did I learn a lot there.
And then even now onto a new venture. And again, in the consulting world, but helping businesses and leaders evolve and develop. So I am happy to call you a friend, a former colleague, a mentor, but most of all, like I said, a friend, because Tim actually and Stacie and I all met at the same place, a name not to be mentioned. No,
everybody has a tour of duty.
Everybody has a tour of duty. Mine was long and hard there, but the
can we say difficult?
Challenging.
Long and difficult.
Long and difficult, challenging. Do we have a thesaurus available? There's not. It's not. Those aren't doing the words justice, I think.
Uncomfortable.
We went there. So here's the deal, everyone. We're excited because one, we always have a lot of fun with Tim. We enjoy the camaraderie, the conversation, and the wealth of knowledge that you've gained over time. But for today's episode, we're really going to keep it kind of loose and flowing.
Brother, you are so generous right now. I just almost want to hug you, but you didn't bring any bourbon. So even though it's 11 a.m., so I'm going to hold that against you forever. But anyways.
It's Bourbon Friday.
It is,
but
bourbon
not yet.
Yeah, but not
it
yet.
Will
but
be.
Not yet. Vodka Friday for me.
All right. Well,
I didn't think you drank.
Vodka?
I
drink.
Okay, just vodka.
Just vodka.
Only vodka.
Sounded very much like an attack right there. Like vodka.
Of course I do.
Yeah. There's the local vodka.
Deep Eddies.
No, Deep Eddies I do love, but there's one that's locally brewed that is currently
Distilled
on the top of my list. So good.
Okay.
Solid.
All right. Well, this episode, we don't really have a theme for this episode. This is a very loose one. This is something that for our listeners out there, you're used to us bringing you guys very specific topics on our episodes. You guys are used to us saying, here's the thing we're going to talk about. Here's the thing we're going to teach you. This is how you evolve, improve, or optimize your life. But with a guest like Tim, there's so many things that I think you've done, and not trying to butter you up, but I've had the ability to be exposed to you that when it comes to building teams, when it comes to morning routines, when it comes to relationships with your spouse and your kids, I have yet to have a conversation with you, Tim, where I haven't seen you intentionally go after improving and evolving that particular aspect of your life. Now, I would say that you're probably not someone that would say you've mastered many of them, if any of them.
I don't think I've mastered anything.
Right. But here's the deal, though, is that we make these things way too fucking complex, and you have yet to prove me wrong in being a resource to go to with a very practical, simple, valuable approach to nearly every topic that I've ever brought to you. And had incredible advice.
Let me be transparent about this. And I don't know how your shit show of 2020's gone, but, I think everybody's been in this cycle, right, of up, down, and all around. I have had the hardest time getting back into a consistent routine, whether it's my workout, whether it's my morning prep time, and I've got a real specific routine that I used. The first part of COVID, first 6 months, no problem. The last few, it's just like I'm grinding, to get back to the gym once the gym's opened up, but then to get into my morning routine of meditation, nourishment the right way, the right water, not too much of this, not too much of alcohol, which, by the way, feels like there's a bottle of wine around my house like every hour of the day. I don't know what. And maybe it's because I'm at home more now. I had to get an office away from my home just to get out of the house.
I'll tell you what you need to not do is what I did. I followed Gary Vaynerchuk, and he helped.
He's a trip. I love that guy.
He helped his father build his wine library but anyway, long story short, he's got one now. God, I can't even.
He drops
like
more F-bombs than anybody on the planet.
Anybody. But he's got a service now through his dad's business, I guess, or maybe they're co-businessing. But I think it's called Wine Text. I can't remember, but it's literally like you get a daily text with this incredible deal on wine.
Lethal.
Incredible deal on wine. They'll get great bottles, $60, $70, $150 bottles of wine that are at least 50%, if not more off. And all you have to do is reply back with the number that you want.
Oh, that's healthy.
And they get delivered to you. And that's been...
Hey, I'll take number 7. I'll take number 8.
That is a COVID business explosion.
Hook and reel, they got... And here's the deal, though, is that they're incredible deals. I have experienced and enjoyed some incredible bottles of wine with my wife.
Can we ask your liver?
It's not able to talk right now.
Yeah, you need a liver supplement.
It's not able to talk because
right
it's still resting up and preparing for the happy hour that we have lined up.
It is Friday.
Isn't this the game though? Is that all of a sudden we found ourselves with a different shit show on our hands, whatever that might be, and we've all been there, right? Marriage issues, a divorce here, a death in the family, boom, COVID. Something we've never seen before. Businesses shut down. I had a phone call 2 weeks ago. A good friend of mine runs a travel business.
Ouch.
A travel business.
No.
Personal and no, exactly right. $6.2 million business, good small business, 30-year business. Do you know what they're doing a month right now? $15,000 a month. From $515, $520 a month is kind of what their run rate was. And they've got 45 employees. They don't want to let anybody go, and they are hoping they can make it till the end. To the end of COVID, and they're hoping they can turn the corner come springtime. And I don't know about you, but I know I've got a lot of friends in the restaurant business. We have family in the restaurant business. Tough. Yeah. And I think, what I've seen is 2 sets of this, right? There's those that just keep going out and recreating and finding a way to change their model, or they sit back and wait and hope. It's kind of like the election. I know this is a touchy subject, but let's just get on with it, right?
Go.
Yeah, if you're waiting and hoping for the next president to fix anything in America, you're fucking making a huge mistake.
Yeah, whether it's the same one or a new one.
It doesn't matter.
We
it
said
doesn't matter.
Damn self.
We said this on 2 episodes ago. I don't even know if it's dropped yet, but we were talking about, everybody keeps talking about, I just can't wait till 1/1. I'm like,
2021.
Nothing's going to fucking change.
Yeah. Well, this is my point about my routine where I've kind of gotten off track a bit, candidly. It's like, wow, if I'm waiting for something to happen, if I'm waiting for things to get better at home, they're not going to happen. That's kind of that victim mentality, right?
Yep.
So you got to find these solutions. And the business owners, and maybe we'll talk business, maybe we won't today, but the business owners that I see doing well, they're just finding ways to reinvent. And yet I played golf with a guy yesterday. His business is up 15%. He thinks he'll be up 30 in the next 2 months.
Well, there's certainly some industries and some niches that have benefited tremendously from the pandemic just because of the nature of the space that they're in. But I had the same conversation with someone, I think it was last week, had coffee with a former colleague, and he was telling me about how, to your exact point, at the moment where there was an opportunity to innovate, he was connected with a friend that found the way to do that. And it took the shape in hand sanitizer. Then it took the shape in PPE.
Oh, you're talking about CB.
Yeah, CB. He just went on. This guy came up with idea after idea after idea how to innovate.
What's the difference in people that do that and then those that are waiting and hoping? I'm waiting for my government to fix this. I'm waiting for my wife, my spouse, my significant other to fix this. I mean, you see the head wound I got, right? And that came from a stiletto from my wife. She's Colombian. And if there's any Latina listeners out there, ay Dios mío, you people are crazy. But you love hot, but man, you guys cook hot on every front. It's actually not that. Wear your sunscreen, little cancer, but nonetheless, what's the difference between people that are out there actually getting that done, innovating in the spot, compared to those that are kind of waiting and hoping and saying, well, I'm going to wait till the first of the year. I'm going to wait until it gets better. You know what? I'm hoping it's going to get better.
I know you've got a couple people in your network, Stacie. What do you think?
I believe, we talk about mindset on this show all the time.
Good, because that's primary. That's number one, right?
It is.
And I think if it's a shift, we all had, give everybody a little bit of grace, right? Everybody's laying on the couch eating potato chips for a little bit, saying, "This is going to be over soon. I'm just going to take advantage. I'm not. The gyms are closed. What the fuck am I going to do? I'm just going to wallow, right? A lot of drinking, a lot of empty bottles of whatever in the recycle container." But there is a moment in time where you have to look at your life and say, what do I want my life to be? How do I want this to be? And I think those are the people, honestly.
Damn it, Nick.
Ah, jeez. banging around in the background.
What the hell?
Those are the people that I think are shifting over. And there are some people that just activated right away. I think some people said, this is opportunity.
Yep.
And I do think it is that mindset of, I mean, we could say it's victim mindset versus activation mindset, but I do think there's an element of people that are just highly resilient and having maybe been through stuff before. We talked about our kids, you know, your kids, I don't know how they're doing, but my teenagers just wallowed in their shit for a while.
Yeah.
But eventually, right, it was like, okay, nothing's going to change if I don't change it. We had Evan's swim meet yesterday. We could have said, this sucks. There couldn't be any spectators. It's his last swim meet of his senior year. It wasn't like it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. But I said to him, you know, I think, kiddo, you're supposed to learn a lot from what's going on, and you can either choose to learn a lot or you can wallow in the pity of it's not what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to seeing how my children at their young ages benefit 10, 15, 20 years down the road because they've gone through their experience of having to overcome and adapt and adjust to this situation this year. But to answer the question too, I think there's a lot of factors that go into getting to this point, but I'll describe it as the people that have really benefited from this or found a way to benefit are the ones who have found themselves in an ability to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And it takes a lot to get to that point. To your point, Stacie, I think it does take a little bit of, oh shit, through your life and having to overcome and adapt and get to this place where you're going, I don't seek out comfort. I don't seek out stability. I don't seek out, you know, the stable comfort, no stress zone. I am really comfortable pushing myself outside of my abilities.
I do really like your comment about grace. And, you know, between every stimulus and response, you got to put a little bit of space, right? Otherwise, you're going to respond to everything. And in most cases, that's not going to end real well. Let's just call it what it is. But I think after the grace moment, then where do you go? Like I'll go right back to a routine where we started. I've had to shift my routine. So now instead of working out first thing in the morning, we got a big real estate project that we're working on together, my wife and I. And besides our consulting practice, and even though she's not involved in that, I've had to kind of shift all of that around. Now my workout takes place a different time of the day. My alone time takes place a different time of the day. But if I'm not getting that, I'm not the best version of me. And I think people that have the ability to adapt, be flexible, understand that, yeah, we didn't plan the swim meet to be this way. We didn't plan prom, and man, how bad do you feel for seniors in high school and college and whatnot, those rites of passage for prom last year, and hopefully they don't have the same dilemma this year, but it appears it's going to go that way. So what do you prepare for? It's like the military. You prepare for certain things regardless of what happens, right? You're always moving.
You always have a contingency plan.
You're always moving.
Yeah.
And I think it's those people that are finding ways to activate, create money out of nowhere. I'll give you an example. My son Sully, who's a bartender not far from here, actually in a really cool place called Honor Amongst Thieves, closed up, shop. He sat and waited. Of course, there's, you get one, maybe he got one check. I don't know. I didn't ask him, but from the government, well, now he's out delivering pizza. So he just keeps reinventing himself. Mm-hmm. Now, he may not like the path that he's on, but he's like, Dad, I don't have a choice. So next thing I know, I heard he's hawking stuff on Amazon, and then he's finding ways to keep moving forward. And I saw him the other day. He looks as good as he's looked in COVID. And usually, he's a night owl. He's a bartender, works super late, gets home at 4, walks his pit bull and on, but he's had to completely shift as well, just like all of us have.
Yeah, it's the adaptability.
Yeah.
Adaptability. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, to bring it back to comic relief, I was reminded of when we talk about routines, mm-hmm. of how I judge how my week has gone is when I take the can of recycle out to the big can outside.
Yeah.
And when I dump it in and it goes
I'm with you.
It goes thump 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 because of the stacks of papers. That's a decent week, right? But lately it's been clank crash, and because of all the bottles, and that's how I judge my weeks.
you can go to Pity City.
Yeah.
You just can't stay there. Right.
Well, and that's okay. That's right. That's a grace part. If you find
there.
yourself in Pity City, fine. Be self-aware. Mm-hmm. Sit there for a few seconds. Just don't wallow in it.
I think there is some incredibly unintended consequences happening. So people are getting okay with not connecting. They're getting okay hibernating in their homes. Some people. We've seen this with some of our friends. Like, some of them haven't even come out yet. They're still not going to restaurants, not getting out. And so I think there are some dramatic unintended consequences that is forcing a gap in communication. that's showing up, or connectivity, even being here with you guys, laughing a little bit before we got started, and just kind of joking around about, wow, how are you? You look great. What, you look like shit. What have you been up to?
I love you too.
I miss you. You know, I think there are some unintended consequences that we have to be cautious of. That when you miss that opportunity, connecting on Zoom is not the same.
It's not.
No.
It
It's
really
not the
isn't.
same.
It's great technology. Don't get us wrong. I think that's not what you're saying, but really I don't know that anybody can really argue that Zoom or virtual meetings does not replace the physical meeting. It doesn't replace human connection. Here's something else that we brought up on a last episode, or maybe a few episodes back, but along the lines of this connectivity thing is, there's a highlight and a spotlight being shined on underlying issues that people haven't dealt with in the past. And unfortunately right now that's manifesting itself in some pretty scary statistics of what's going on inside some of these homes. You have not intentionally invested in a great relationship with your spouse. Guess what? Okay, you've been sort of coexisting for a while. You're probably in that divorce.
It's coming to light.
Yeah. You've got some underlying issues with self-worth, self-doubt, self-image, whatever the case may be. You're dealing with some major depression right now. And then if it's to the extreme, you know, we've seen a lot of people just end it. And it's really sad to see that there's a pandemic has brought to the surface a lot of underlying issues that people need to realize. If you're dealing with that, you can't let it fester. Don't get in pity city and sit there forever. Don't become the victim mindset. Pick yourself up, deal with your shit, seek out help. We've talked about it before. There are coaches and therapists and resources and friends and aunts and uncles and people that you can talk to as long as you're willing to open up and be vulnerable about what you're going through.
Yeah, we've talked about this at length about, you know, watching our kids evolve through this process, watching our spouses evolve through this process. And then inside of the business world, just there's still being such duality, and almost some businesses being in denial that this is even an issue.
Yeah.
And others kind of migrating into a space of saying, hey, we maybe don't need the physical space presence we've had in the past. We're going to open the door to allow people to work virtually at least part of the time. I mean, I think there's been positive unintended consequences of this, because I do believe that as people have now normalized their world to this new norm, right? If you used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because you had an hour commute, and now you've normed to something different, and you walk your dog, and your dog is going to look at you like, what the fuck? Like, we've been walking every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning for, 9 months. Now you're just going to go do whatever. I do believe I think there's going to be a swing back a little bit to kind of like over plug in, which is already happening. I think people are saying that they're working more than they ever have. There's no boundary, right? But I do believe, as it tends to be, right, people will swing back somewhere in the middle. Like, this felt really good. These elements during COVID felt really good to me.
Yeah.
Being there for my children, being more hyper connected to my spouse, being more at home, having time and carving out time for myself, right? And then some people went to another place even regarding physical movement, where they're like, man, I never really had the time. Some people went to a place of moving more than they ever had. They were out walking and doing things. Arizona, we were super lucky during the early stages of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were able to get the hell out. And
well, my whole gym, my whole backyard turned into a gym.
Yep.
Put the Peloton out there, put the weights out there so I could keep working out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Peloton.
And
love it.
The Peloton.
Love that thing.
And I have told you, Blake, I have a spin bike, and I started working out in my garage, and I'd roll that out onto the driveway because I was outside.
Yeah.
And I said, James put it in our exercise room. I'm like, I really feel like I would rather be back outside.
Yeah, you're like, honey, I appreciate what you did,
I never
but
would have thought
undo
that.
it.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that I would rather be on the patio on my spin bike than like inside.
Yeah.
And I was such a gym person.
Well, we're so fortunate here because over the next 8 months, it gets bliss, right?
Yes.
So I was
Yes.
mountain biking on Tuesday morning. I played golf yesterday, where the north is getting snow already in some states. And, so there is something to be said for keep getting outside. Even when I ran a lot in the Midwest, it didn't matter what time of year it was. And I think there's something about that healthy too, that movement, when you change your physiology, it changes everything. When you stop your physiology and you stop moving and you stop being active, and I'm not talking about lifting weights, I'm just talking about moving.
Movement.
Just
movement.
walk. And
it could even be as simple as posture.
Yeah.
People talk about when you're getting ready for that big presentation. They talk about, do your Superman or Superwoman stance, or, peacock your feathers out, whatever the case is. There's a real biological, physiological change to your state when you change the way you're moving your body.
No question.
There's no, if anybody's listening to this and you do question that, just do it. I mean, if you've been sitting for 3 hours, get up and go take a quick little, just slow walk around the building.
I haven't been on social media for a couple months. I kind of pushed pause on that after Victoria and I came back from vacation, and I probably won't jump back on, other than I've been on TikTok. I don't know if you guys are on TikTok. This is fascinating. There's more weird shit on TikTok than I've ever seen in my life, which is kind of...
It's interesting.
It's interesting, addictive, and then I find these really cool things on there.
Yes.
And I haven't been on it much, but just what you're talking about yesterday, I saw this guy just talking about breathing. Here's the things you got to do to breathe, and breathe in 2, out 1, and I can't think of his name. I just watched a special with him. And
Ben Hoff movie. Yeah, it's what is the Nick? Wim Hof.
Wim Hof.
Yeah.
Whatever you say. Yeah. So
that's not the guy. It's the breathing method.
But talking about physiology, if you have somebody that's talking to you about those things, as opposed to people that aren't exposed to those things, it's a different universe. Mm-hmm. It's like my wife is very much into holistic things. I didn't know anything about it till we started dating. Matter of fact, I looked in her fridge and she freaked me out. There was like all these vials of stuff in her fridge. I'm like, wow, is she doing drugs? I had no idea. And I found needles. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, this woman's like 5 foot nothing, as thin as a rail. Maybe she's on drugs. Turns out it was like B complex, folic acid, B12, and she was doing all of her own injections. And the point of it is that there's a way that you can learn about that and find that now more easily than ever before.
Right.
And it can be via social media. Stay away from all the crap on there, because there's all kinds of crap out there.
98% crap.
That's why I quit. That's why I kind of pulled back for a couple months and haven't posted anything, and really haven't been involved other than this TikTok thing I came across, but which has been out there forever.
Well, we talked about retargeting, and I think people are. I mean, what is it? Social
dilemma.
Social dilemma.
Great show.
I think teenagers were we were actually, some of our teenagers in our house were watching it. I think it was a little bit like, what? I don't think they were completely aware of how retargeting works and how their data, and Blake said this on the episode we talked about this on, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. Like, that concept for, I think, teenagers was kind of I didn't understand that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so I think for people right now, we talked about this even about the election. Yes, like if you click through on things, you will get more validation of your own opinion.
Yeah.
So if you don't, if you do want a bigger perspective and a bigger world, you have to work to not, to not click through and to not do those things, because it will edit your feed for you. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just, a lack of organic flow. I do think TikTok, I don't know what their algorithm is. I don't know what they use.
I have no idea. So it's got to be similar.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, because dance videos, love my dance stuff. And so, yes, most of my feed is dance video stuff. Yeah. So but I do think that as teenagers start to open their eyes to that, I think it's really healthy, because you're talking about kids that, are not yet really fully in the workforce, but they're coming into the workforce. We've talked about this before. They don't text anymore. Yeah. Like that's like not a thing. If you want to get a hold of them, you have to call them. So I think, again, there's just this evolution happening. And I think
at the core of that discussion is the same area we started this on, which wasn't necessarily a communication routine. It's about personal responsibility. Yeah. And who's really responsible for the outcome of your business, of your happiness, of your health and wellness? It's like if I were to rely on my doctor and take every medicine that he tells me to take and don't take personal responsibility for what I'm ingesting, whose fault is it?
Yeah.
But yet it's so much easier oftentimes just look out the window. I'm just going to look out there. It's that person's fault. It's that politician's fault. It's that party's fault. It's that church's. Pick a topic or a target. You can externalize everything you want to. But when kids, I think in particular, when they see this movie or this documentary on social dilemma, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not only eye-opening, but they have a responsibility now to go, wait a minute, I know that. Now what do I do with it?
Yep.
And even for your listeners, if they're learning pieces of content from you, from others, from other podcasts, whatnot, now you've got a personal responsibility to do something with it. And a lot of people are sitting back saying, well, I'm just going to keep waiting. Well, nothing good's going to happen there. Nothing's going to change in your life if you do that. And, boy, get it. Hit pity city. You just can't stay there, right?
Yeah, and the personal responsibility. So to bring it back to the business world, and we mentioned like all of us have had the opportunity to build high-performing teams. And as a leader, and this doesn't even have to be the business world too. You're a leader within your own household. You're a leader within your close group of friends, potentially. You have a personal responsibility to yourself, but don't lose sight of how your personal responsibility shows up for other people when they're looking to you for influence. You're empowering other people around you to do the same thing. So what I'm really hopeful for in this social dilemma and exposing the influence that is being really just force-fed to a lot of the teenagers and even, well, they're beyond teenage years now, but the generation that's never not had a smartphone in their hand, exposing them to just how heavily influenced they are outside of their own even choice. It's just there. I'm really excited to see what they do with that. Because that personal responsibility piece that you talked about, Tim, they need to take really hard ownership of that and then make some hard choices to not let those influences completely herd us like sheep to one way or the other. And Stacie, you alluded this and talked about it too, is if you want to know about something, take an active role in going out and finding that information.
Yeah, and today you got to dig for it.
You do. You have to.
You have to dig for the truth, right? What's the truth?
And it's like a truffle, right? You got to dig through some shit to find it. Like you're going to have to sift through some crap in order to find the gem of actually quality information. I'm
like a truffle?
Like a truffle.
Did that just come out? I mean,
there's a specially trained pig.
The hell does that come from?
That sniffs out truffles.
What are you drinking? What the hell is wrong with you?
I'm drinking life, Tim.
It's like a truffle.
It's like a truffle.
Cut through the shit to get to the good stuff.
Well, yeah. You want to,
dude? That's brilliant.
No, for the next 10 minutes, I'm doing metaphors only.
Okay. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard the Blade Train.
Yeah. The Blade Train. There is a lot of truth in what you're saying that you have to go find it out. Like, I quit watching the news right after COVID came out only because I find so much of it nonsense and you can't find the truth. It's like, boy, did you hear what this person said? Then you go Google it and research it and it's like, that wasn't it at all. That didn't even happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's this responsibility that we have to take, not just for health and wellness or state of mind. And of course, where people are at emotionally today is in a much different space than they might have been a year ago.
Yeah.
Where it felt like, let's roar into 2020. What a great year. And then whap. Mm-hmm. Right?
It was definitely an irony of people really feeling like this was a new beginning. And it is, but not how anybody thought it was going to be.
Does the saying hindsight's always 2020, does that change now going forward? Is that different?
Foresight is
in the year 25.
Well, if we're going to break out into song.
Yeah. No, hey, that was something cool I saw on TikTok. This really cute girl was doing a Fleetwood Mac song. Have you seen this?
With the cranberry juice?
With the cranberry juice?
Yeah.
And now she's like, everybody's jumping up. I think she got it off of a guy that was on a skateboard named Dogface or something.
Yep.
And he got a free house. I don't know. He got a truck.
He did not.
Yeah, Ocean Spray.
Ocean Spray.
They went to him and they're like, this our sales are through the roof. Like, here's a truck.
Wow, what can we do? See, now there's innovation for you.
Well, here you go. Here, I'll take
innovation.
I'll take a quick step for you right here. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'm wearing a particular T-shirt today. This is by a company called Till Valhalla. I'm probably not pronouncing it Valhalla. Valhalla is it's from Viking times. It's the where the warriors go, the feasting hall in heaven, right from dying in battle. But this is a company that is owned by veterans. They go by veterans. They with every sale of T-shirt, hoodie, all their material, they take and they build a handcrafted by veterans plaque that goes to the family of a fallen veteran.
Oh, no way. That's fantastic.
And the mission, and I just stumbled upon them. I probably came through a TikTok or social media feed, but it's just, I'll take, because we got on the moment of it with Ocean Spray. Till Valhalla, you don't have to send me anything, but I just want to take the chance to call out what I found to be a really cool company, great product, and I like their mission behind what they're doing.
Fantastic. Now think about all those things that are innovating off of that.
Oh, yeah.
So I will be fascinated to see what happens 6 months down the road from ocean spray to, if that was a big thing, and it sounds like it is. You're more plugged in than I am in that game, but what comes next?
Well, I think we're going to see a downward trend in urinary tract infections.
Solid.
So that's I think we can just wipe that one off the table. We've probably found.
Oh boy.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Well.
Can we go back to the metaphors?
Sure. Yeah.
I do think too that kids have started to get a little more creative about things, and the mask situation at school I think is really challenging. So I've watched my kids kind of get a little bit more creative about how they're interacting with other people, and I think that they're getting everyone to shift their mindset out of pity city. I like that term, into a place of empowerment, that this is an opportunity. And I think it's an opportunity. We've talked about this a lot. Like, you were able to be home with your kids. I was way home with my teenagers. I had to get an office by myself too. But it taught me that balance is important to me, that I do want both, that I don't want one or the other, that they need you when they need you. And so to be there when they needed me was really, really valuable.
Balance is a hard thing.
It is.
Yeah.
And I guess it's
if there's such a thing as balance. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
I'm on the fence.
It's integration, I think.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think
That's true.
The balance idea sounds good in premise, and we've used it a lot in years past, like the work-life balance. And I think recently, though, in probably the last 2 years, I've seen more people talk about it as more like a work-life integration, because you're not one or the other.
No, I think this is a hell of a dilemma. Like Victoria and I have this going on right now, where we're kind of full on in two of her projects, and she's an interior designer and realtor, and so she's doing a bunch of remodel work. The phone's never off. Right. Yeah. It's just plugged in all the time. And that's, there's a lot of brilliant things that comes out of these devices. And then there's a lot of things that keep you away from actually connecting and communicating with one another. And then this time, I think it's more important than ever to, push pause on some of this so that you have time to truly connect and be present. Like, I don't know about you, but I think that's one of the more difficult things I've had to do over my career is when you're be present in that moment, as opposed to distracted. I got these 7 things. Yeah, I'm listening to you, Stacie. Sure, you bet. Well, and yet I'm not there at all. I'm not even there.
Yeah.
Well, and on Zoom calls, that's so easy, right? For people to be not incredibly present.
And plus they don't have pants on. I mean, that's weird.
That's always distracting.
It's uncomfortable.
Is you
pants are uncomfortable.
Violated.
Saying that because he's sitting next to me right now.
Violated. Get your hand off
Yeah.
me.
Well, Nick, there is a breeze in here, by the way. And you. So there's something that Tim, actually, you said to me years ago. Tim and I were traveling. We were traveling for business, and it wasn't completely related to it did come up as a topic. I had a difficult conversation with my wife. Not happy that I was traveling. It was sort of a situation I've talked on previous episodes that happened to us. I was, quote unquote company man, doing as needed as my role evolved, but it wasn't something my wife and I consciously made a decision on, that I was going to take a role where travel was involved.
Yeah. And
so this lack of an intentional decision to arrive there left her in a place that she was very unhappy with it. But when we were traveling one time, and forgive me, I think the way that you said it was, whatever you do, you got to make sure when you get home, you're not bringing your family your leftovers.
Yeah.
Right. It's just something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about that, of going, how many times had I unintentionally did that, because I would, take the late flight in. I'd be like, I'm not going to stay another night. I'm getting back that night. It'd be midnight or whatever the case may be. But how was I really walking in the door? And nowadays, I think because of that blend of our work life, kind of integrating together, the leftovers is like, it's almost right there. You're just drained.
If you don't take control of that, it will take control of you. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's the way the game is played, right? Like, if you're not deliberate and purposeful about your time. Like, I remember when my kids were little, and this is a long time ago because I'm older than you. This as you can tell on lots of fronts.
Got a hole in the head.
I got a hole in my head, and everything's turning gray and stuff's falling out. That's a whole nother topic. But I would get home and I would just fight and beg for bedtime. I'm like, oh, please go to bed. I'd be so exhausted. I'd be flying in from Asia or wherever I was at the time, and I traveled a lot for most of my career, and actually all of my career for the most part. But, if we're giving the people that we care the most about our leftovers because we think being a good provider is the game, it's not the game at all. And matter of fact, they would take a lot less stuff and more time with us being present than they would the other way around.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's kind of a rude awakening when you kind of realize that. And when I, left my job after 20 years for a company that I worked for a long time, and I came home and one of the kids said to me, I think it was my oldest son, Jack, said, "You know what, Dad, it feels like you're on vacation." And I kind of looked at him like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, you just seem happy." I'm like, wow, you don't realize the stress that's on you, that you wear day in and day out when that game is being played. And so if you're not purposeful, and this is kind of where I was going with it, if you're not purposeful about not giving people that you care, your friends and your parents and your loved ones and all of these people that rely on us, or that we filled their tank and they fill our tank, you're going to end up showing up not being the best version of you, and then nobody's going to benefit from that. Most importantly, you, because if you're not healthy, you can't help anybody else be healthy, right? Like if you're not light and full of grace and full of love and full of kindness, you're not going to get that shit back. It's going to come flying right back at you. It's just a matter of time, right? It's just a matter of time.
I think that is the takeaway for this episode for me. We always try to give our listeners something at the end. And, I think as we march towards 2021, as we march toward the holidays, by the time this episode drops.
Wow, how different is that going to be, by the way?
Yeah. And I think it's an opportunity for everybody to say, like, what have I learned out of this situation, and what is the most important thing to me, and how do I continue to hold that sacred as my employer maybe is asking me to come back in the office now, or asking me to start traveling again, or asking me to kind of go back to normal, whatever that means. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to say, I think a blend is the best option for me personally. Is that an opportunity here at this company? I don't want to miss out on all the things that I know now that I was missing, because I now know. Like, I can't unknow what I now know.
Right.
Don't
you wish you could?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
I didn't know, right? My kids have been in startups for a lot of my career. You traveled for a lot of your career. And I think for them, like, I was at every volleyball game this season for my daughter. It starts at 4:00. I wouldn't have been able to be there ever. Or swim meets or whatever that looks like, because I just couldn't get there. It was never an option. But that's my fault. I never made it a priority. I never said to anyone out of my own insecurity, like, hey, I'm dedicated to this job. I'm going to my daughter's volleyball game. And I think if anything, people taking that forward with them to understand how incredibly critical that is, that we feeding our family first. Yeah. With our love and our grace and our presence in some cases, I think is more important than we all probably realized.
A topic that I've been trying to work on personally is just, how do I spend my time being more grateful? And regardless of what's happening out here, and I got reminded of this last week, my oldest son, Jack, who does live in the Phoenix area, looks like a beast right now. He has been working out like crazy. He's done just the opposite of what a lot of people have done, which is kind of go back on their heels. He pressed forward, really quit drinking, not partying with his friends. Keep in mind, he's a 25-year-old kid, and that's hard to do, I think, in that stage. He's gone the other way. And he said, "You know what, Dad, I don't see a lot of what's going on around me because I'm taking care of this, and it's the best I've ever felt mentally and physically." And I thought about that, of no matter what happens around him, and this was the discussion I just had with him last week, was, listen, regardless of what happens around you, because his boss just got fired. Matter of fact, his boss's boss got fired, and they cleaned out all the vice presidents, and now his direct boss got fired. And these were the two people that actually hired him to the company. So he was super emotional about it. I went to meet him for coffee. That's where he turned me onto this, and this is a plug. Not that I like Starbucks, but this Nitro Cold Brew is the shit.
So good.
Oh, it's the real deal.
He's going to start talking about the Cascara cold foam on top.
But what I thought was so incredible was, he's like, "Dad, it doesn't matter what happens out here because I'm good right here."
Yeah.
And that was a reminder for me that regardless of COVID, regardless of what happens here, I can make this holiday season the best damn holiday season I possibly can have with people I love and care about.
Well, look at where we all were. I'll just say this. Where we all were a year ago. The three of us sitting at this table. And where we are now. And I am grateful. I wake up every morning and say that same thing, that I look back to where I was a year ago, pre-COVID, where I thought life was whatever it was, and where I am right now, I wouldn't trade that backwards for anything.
Not a chance.
Even though there's been, stress and financial stress and all the things, like it's all been worth it. And that journey has led me to where I am right now. And so I think for everybody that's listening, as we wrap this episode, is that, take the time and take the space. We've talked about journaling before. We've talked about gratitude. But, now is the time to really internalize those things and start. If you need to go back and listen to episode 1 all the way through, we talk about all these things because this podcast was born out of COVID, out of Blake and I really needing some positive energy in our week. Yeah. And so this created that for us.
I think this gratitude thing, if I can for a minute, when I first stumbled upon this years ago, it kind of felt like a female thing. And for all your male listeners, wake up and find a way to be more grateful, and your personal life will change, and it will change with your spouse when you start looking at all of the things that they are great at and why you loved them to begin with, instead of going, ugh, he's such a pain in the ass, or she is, or what. You can come up with a laundry list because we're all weird. We all have our own thing. But if in particular, I guess I'm speaking to your male listeners, is don't have all of this ego about, I'm just going to take time to go, here's the 5 things every day I'm grateful for.
Yep.
Isn't that so true, though? I think that this gets into an even deeper topic, but I mean, I think that there's some serious baggage for, I'll just specifically identify men in this situation, some serious baggage of what it means to be a quote unquote man. And it is this stereotypical, you're closed off, to your point, Tim, to certain things that have been in the past seen as soft or not manly. Yeah. And yet those are some of the things that, regardless of gender, are the most beneficial things to a human being across the board. Positive mindset, gratitude, just humanity.
Be human.
It's viewed as feminine to nourish yourself, and that feminine masculine energy should be balanced in all of us.
Oh, God,
it's not as if that. But I agree with what you said. I think there's a shame in really tapping into that female energy, whether you're talking inside of organizations, in your home. And so I think just coming to the understanding that it is the balance of masculine and feminine energy that creates a better human experience for everyone.
I think that'd be a great podcast for you guys, is what does it mean to be human? What does it really mean in light of all the racial tension and all this political nonsense? What does it really mean to be human?
Well, we'll have you back on, Tim. Let's have this conversation.
Let's not get carried away.
Will you come back? Will you join
of course
us for
I'll come back. I love having a chat with you
right.
guys. But
for sure, bourbon next time.
For sure, absolutely.
I'm not coming back unless there's bourbon.
There will be bourbon. There will be bourbon.
I don't think I drink bourbon, but I'll give it a shot.
There will be laughs. There will be some probably. There might be tears next time. Might be tears.
I'm open for tears.
Yeah.
I'm open for tears.
Well, it talks about another thing. Like, that's a stigma for men, right? Like, men shouldn't cry. No, that's bullshit.
I know you want to wrap up here. This actually came up with Jack.
No, we don't need to wrap.
This came up with Jack and I the other day. It actually, my oldest son, who I was just telling you a story about, a few months ago, him and his buddy were sitting in my backyard, beginning of COVID. I'm drinking wine. They're not drinking. And they start going down this path of how many of their friends are depressed. Young men that aren't being men, that aren't getting in touch with their feelings. And then they both started walking. I'm actually getting goosebumps. They both started walking me down the path of when they've hit a depressing state as young men, not being able to talk about their feelings with other people and other men in particular. I thought it was a very shocking and eye-opening discussion for me. I didn't grow up in kind of an environment where I shared those kind of things, but I think if you had an episode about what does it really mean to be human, I think you could touch a lot of people's lives in a good way, not inappropriately the way you like to.
Well, you've been inappropriately touching me under the table the entire episode, Tim.
It's uncomfortable.
I love that idea of talking about that element, because I think even women in corporate America who are my age have been taught that emoting anything is not a good thing for us.
Yeah, you got to be this badass and be whatever this is, right?
So I think we should continue this conversation in another session.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Hey, thanks for having me, you guys. Good seeing you both.
We appreciate it, Tim.
You look healthy, happy.
And I don't, apparently.
No,
so
you're okay.
Well, listen, everybody out there, we greatly appreciate talking about gratitude. Stacie and I are so grateful for our listeners. For those of you who have subscribed, for those of you who listen to us on a consistent basis, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We hope that we continue to bring value to you on all these episodes. And with that, we hope you guys have a wonderful remainder of your week. Remember, we drop another episode every Wednesday. And for that, take care.
Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks for listening to our show. You can find Blake and I on social media channels at Blake Rayhans and at Stacie Mallon.
Be sure to follow Optimized AF on Instagram and rate and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. See you next time.